أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Today, by the grace of Allah the Almighty, we have gathered here to celebrate the life and legacy of Hazrat Maood, the second caliph to the promised Messiah والسلام, the literal fulfillment of the prophecy Maood, which the promised Messiah والسلام, asked for in front of his Allah in the form of a jilla that he performed for 40 days in the city of Hoshiarpur, as Sadr Saab initially mentioned. The topic that I have chosen to speak to you today about is somewhat of a topic which isn't necessarily addressed that often in our gatherings. But before I get to that, let me quickly mention a few things regarding the personality, regarding the day of this giant of Islam Ahmadiyya that we know as Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Thani, Hazrat Maood radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Hazrat Maood had mentioned in one place that he used to sleep only 3 hours every day. I want you to visualize this, that Hazrat Maood used to sleep for only 3 hours every day. And those 3 hours were not even during the dark of the night. He would stay up working all night long. And then he would sleep after having offered his Fajr Salat. Then he would go to bed. And then at 8 a.m. he would be up again. And then his day would begin. In other words, his day was 21 hours long with work and worship of God. He used to offer tahajjud every night for 3 long hours. Think about that. For 3 hours, almost every night, he would stand before his God and then he would offer tahajjud salah. And then in another place he mentioned that he had read more than 18,000 books. 18,000 books. Imagine that. Hazrat Maood radiyallahu ta'ala once mentioned that he, in a single night, read 100 books. When an individual reads 1 book per day, we consider him to be a genius. We consider him to have a laser-sharp focus. What about the grandeur of the man who could read 100 books per night? You know, one of his son-in-laws, Mir Mahmood Nasir Sahib, may Allah Ta'ala grant him long and healthy life. Mir Sahib mentioned in one of his interviews that once he was scrolling through some of the books from the personal library of Hazrat Maood. And in that, he selected a random book and he started scrolling through its pages. And he saw that on the sidelines, there were handwritten notes by Hazrat Maood on each book, or on that specific book. And then after some pages, there was a gap. There were no notes. So he thought maybe Hazrat Maoud read only up till this point. And to his surprise, when he scrolled towards the later part of the book, he saw that there were notes again, signifying that Hazrat Maoud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu had read all those books in their entirety. So this is the person that we have gathered here to discuss. And now to the topic that I have chosen for today's gathering is the resilience and the leadership of Hazrat Maoud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu at a very critical juncture in the history of India and Pakistan. I'm referring to the incidents that took place in the year 1947 in the form of migration of Muslims en masse from India to Pakistan, which included, of course, the mass migration of Ahmadi Muslims from India towards Pakistan as well. On 18th of September 1894, the promised Messiah ﷺ receives revelation Dagh-e-Hijr, which means that migration is inevitable. It is something which is going to happen. Initially, the promised Messiah ﷺ thought that maybe this is a reference towards his own migration, that migration, many prophets had to migrate. So maybe even Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ might have to migrate. But migration never took place during his life. So it eventually came true in the form of his Khalifa, Hazrat Muslim Maud, that he had to migrate along with the headquarters of Jamaat at that time. So to give you a bit of perspective, how this migration took place, it's a story of deep pain, it's a story of resilience and amazing leadership. In the month of June 1947, Boundary Commission had been established, and one of the representatives, the purpose of Boundary Commission was that it would decide that the Muslim majority areas of, at that time, India, areas where Muslims were in majority would go towards Pakistan, and the areas where Hindus and Sikhs were in majority would become part of India. And United India was going to be divided into two halves, Pakistan and India. And of course, Pakistan was being divided into two halves as well, the East Pakistan and the West Pakistan. East Pakistan nowadays is called Bangladesh, and West Pakistan is now called Pakistan. Back then it was just Pakistan. So Hazrat Qaid-e-Azam, rahimahullah, who became the founder of Pakistan, heard this rumor, this news floating around, that Boundary Commission and some of the representatives of the British Empire are not playing fair. That the area of Punjab in India, which was a Muslim majority area, was being given to India instead of Pakistan, even though it was Muslim majority area and it should go to Pakistan. So Hazrat Qaid-e-Azam sent one of his representatives on the 8th of August 1947 to meet the Viceroy and the representative of the British Empire, who came back and reported that it seems that the rumors are indeed true. They are going to give the district of Gurdaspur to India instead of Pakistan. Up until that point, because that was a Muslim majority area and Qadian is in the center of that district, and of that area, Jamaat naturally thought that Jamaat will become part of Pakistan. Qadian will become part of Pakistan. Fast forward to 4 days later, on the August 12th, 1947, 2 days before Pakistan came into being, after Asr Namaz, when Hazrat Muslim Maud had just offered Asr prayer, he received ilham, he received revelation from Allah the Almighty. Aynama takunu yati bikumullahu jamia. Wherever you all be, Allah will bring you all together. And he interpreted this revelation that migration is inevitable. That migration is now going to take place. And it's very likely that the headquarters of Jamaat might have to be moved to another location. And soon after that, the Boundary Commission officially announced that yes, indeed, the district of Gurdaspur now is going to be part of India instead of Pakistan. Fast forward to 10 days or 11 days, and now we're looking at the 25th of August 1947. Pakistan has now been established, and Pakistan is about 11 days old. And the very first kafla from Qadian leaves for Lahore. In that kafla, in that caravan, there was Hazrat Amma Jan, the blessed consort of the promised Messiah, alayhi salatu wasalam, radiyallahu ta'ala anha. Along with her, the other female relatives from the family of the promised Messiah, alayhi salam, and then other women and children were part of this kafla. And it was headed, meaning right in front of the buses, that were carrying these blessed women and children was the jeep which was being driven by the father of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih al-Khamis Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz, Hazrat Sahibzada Mirza Mansoor Ahmad Sahib Rahimahullah. Around the same time, the Sikh majority and the Hindu majority around the area of Qadian started to exert their pressure on Muslim villages. They started to decimate Muslim villages. They started to burn down the villages in their entirety and started to mutilate and kill the innocent Muslims. As a result of this, an Ahmadi village was destroyed that had around 600 Ahmadis. Many Ahmadi Muslims lost not just their possessions, but ultimately their lives as well. On the 29th of August, it was Friday, and Hazrat Muslim Maood Radiyallahu Ta'ala anhu, Khalifatul Masih Sani, gave his final khutbah in Qadian. One could only imagine the place where he was born, the place he was raised, the place where Promised Messiah had lived his entire life. You could only imagine, and we could only imagine the kind of pain Hazrat Muslim Maood must have felt at that time. Then on the 31st of August, Hazrat Muslim Maood himself left for Lahore. But before he left, he wrote a message, which I will share here with you, which was then shared with the members of the Jamaat at that time. Hazur wrote, अगर कादियान में कोई हादसा हो जाए, तो जमात का पहला फर्ज ये होगा कि शेखुपुरा या सियालकोट में रेल के करीब लेकिन निहायत सस्ती जमीन लेकर एक मरकज बनाया जाए। इमारात सादा हों और फौरन कॉलेज, स्कूल, मदरसा अहमदिया और जामिया की तालीम को जारी किया जाए। कोशिश की जाए कि बड़े बड़े उलमा पैदा हों। अगर मैं मारा जाऊं या और किसी तरह जमात से अलहदा हो जाऊं, तो पहली सूरत में फौरन खलीफा का इंतखाब हो और दूसरी सूरत में एक नायब खलीफा मुंतखब किया जाए। These were not normal circumstances. These were dire situations through which Hazrat Muslim Maood, may Allah be pleased with him, guided the community of the Promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam. When Hazur safely reached Lahore, there were about 15,000 Ahmadi Muslims. 15,000 Ahmadi Muslims that were still left in Qadian. 15,000. Hazur's vision was so powerful that he had foreseen something like this would happen. And he had told Jamaat a year or so before this, start stocking food and necessary items. And Jamaat did that. And it came in handy at that time. When the Muslim villages started to be burned down by the Sikhs and Hindus around that area, the Muslims naturally felt that they have no place of refuge other than Qadian. And according to some estimates, around 70,000 migrants, refugees, took refuge in that tiny hamlet, tiny village of Qadian. Can you imagine? A place which can barely hold 15,000 people was now housing 70,000 people from outside. People were sleeping on streets. There were puddles of water. They had no roof over their head. And this is how people were living, just so that they can survive. Jamaat, through Langar of Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam, was providing them meals. All the properties of Jamaat were being utilized at that time to house these people. The local police was of no help. They started to arrest the office holders of Jamaat. On 7th of September, in the city of Lahore, after migration, Hazrat Muslim Maood, literally 1 week after his migration to Lahore, he called a Majlis Shura, a consultative body in which these were the things that were discussed. That members from outside of Qadian, the members of Jamaat from outside Qadian, need to prepare a list of male individuals that are above the age of 18. From the age of 18 to 55, and 1/8 of those male individuals, a draw should be made, and those individuals then should be sent for the protection of Markaz and Qadian. And the people that were in Qadian, a similar list should be made of those individuals, and at least 1/3 of those should be made to migrate to Pakistan. And when these people in thousands were coming to Pakistan, they had left behind their properties, they had nothing to eat, no clothes on their back. They had nothing with them. And we're not talking about a few hundred, we're talking about thousands of individuals. Hazrat Muslim Maood radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu then sent a message to the Jamaat of Sialkot. He said, हर अहमदी घराना बुनियादी ज़रूरत से ज़ायद कपड़े, कंबल, लिहाफ वगैरह अपने मुसीबत ज़दा बहन भाइयों की खिदमत के लिए पेश करे. That the Jamaat of Sialkot should give up clothing, blankets, food staples, quilts, more than their needs that they have, so that it could be used by their brothers and sisters who are migrating at this time. And one of the first directives that Hazrat Muslim Maood gave was to the principal, one of the professors who had migrated. Professors of Talimul Islam College who had just migrated from India to Pakistan. Chaudhry Muhammad Ali Sahib Mustad. Hazur said, आसमान के नीचे सरजमीन पाकिस्तान पे जहां जगह मिलती है वो जगह लें और फौरन कॉलेज शुरू करें. Under the canopy of the sky, on the land of Pakistan, wherever you find any spot, start the college immediately. And then he established the new markaz, which is called Rabwa, a barren land. Nobody wanted to buy this land. There were people who tried to invest in Rabwa, but they failed. And everybody unanimously agreed that Rabwa, or that area, I believe at that time it was called Chakdugiyan. They said that Chakdugiyan is a failed project. It can never be successful. And Hazrat Muslim Maood radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu looks at this place, this land of Rabwa, and he said, this is the place where we are going to establish our new markaz, the new headquarters of Jamaat Ahmadiyya Muslim. Hazrat Muslim Maoud once mentioned that a gardener, when he has to uproot a tree from one location and has to place it or install it in another location, it seems extremely difficult and at times almost impossible. He said, the task which has been entrusted to me by Allah, which is before my eyes, is not compared to a tree being uprooted from one location and installed in another. My task can be compared to an entire garden being uprooted and then installed in another location. And he did it. He did it. He established Rabwa, and now those of us who have been to Rabwa, we know what that city, that barren land, has turned into by the grace of Allah the Almighty. Qadian was attacked on 16th of September, partially, and then a bigger attack took place where grenades were thrown in Masjid Mubarak, in Masjid Aqsa, On the night between 2nd and 3rd of October, the Sikhs, along with the Hindus and police around Qadian, they attacked from the eastern side of Qadian. and they were firing bullets, throwing grenades. And ultimately at that time, the man in charge over there was Hazrat Sahibzada Mirza Nasir Ahmed Sahib, rahimahullah ta'ala, who later became the third caliph. And then when he saw that now there is no way out, there is no way for peace, these people are hell-bent on murdering every single resident of Qadian, every single Muslim who was there. He gave the permission to the Khuddam that were on duty to now defend. And when Khuddam al-Anbiya started to defend the members of Qadian, the Jamaat in Qadian and the other Muslims, thousands that were taking refuge in Qadian, those Sikhs, Hindus and the police collectively ran away. This was all a result of the tarbiyah that Hazrat Muslim Maud had done of his Khuddam. This is a very short chapter from the life of Hazrat Muslim Maud, but indeed a very important one that I wanted to make sure that I share here today with all of my brothers and sisters. May Allah the Almighty shower His choicest blessings on the person of Hazrat Muslim Maud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Pray for him. Pray for the Jamaat. Pray for his children, the physical children and also the spiritual children. Pray that Allah the Almighty raise Hazrat Muslim Maud's status in paradise, and may we also see the day of the dominance of Islam Ahmadiyyat as was envisioned by not just Hazrat Masih al-Islam but Hazrat Muslim Maud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu as well. Ameen wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah.